Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're doing another installment of the weekly meta breakdown where we look at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. This video will be for the historic best of one format. We'll look at best of three, explore, standard, everything that we do, every format on Arena really, will be covered in the playlist, usually about once a week, provided that there is data. Speaking of the data itself, we are getting it from UntappedGG, what you see on the screen. It is a companion tool that aggregates your win rates and then pulls in everybody else's that's using the tool, gives us really cool stats. If you want to get started with Untapped, link is in the video description. If not, if you already have it, you can pull the decks. I'll paste all these, timestamp them in the video description. You'll get everything there. So nice, easy, one-stop shop for all your deck list needs. And we'll go from there. So we're looking Platinum to Mythic rank. It's basically the last day of July into the first week of August. We're looking at that range because the ladder resets. Everybody that was Mythic now falls down to Platinum. So everybody's starting off again with their grind to Mythic. We're going to start off as always with the historic meta breakdown, looking at popularity of decks, and then we'll look at win rates. Popularity doesn't necessarily correlate to win rate. Decks can either be budget constrained, like budgety focused or stuff like that. So people might want to play stuff even though it's not necessarily having the highest win rate. So looking at the popularity of the day, Izzet Wizards is the highest win rate or highest popularity deck at 10%. It's the only deck that's coming in at double digits in terms of popularity. Rakdos midrange is about 5%, and then we got just like a glut of like 3 to 4%. Dimir Dredge, Mono Black Control, Golgari Yawgmoth, no color Paradoxical Storm, Mono Green Elves always kind of hangs around but doesn't really do much in terms of win rate. And then Grixis Dredge. So just varied colors of Dredge. The Grixis version is just playing Faithless Looting. Sometimes they'll play Lava Axe or whatever, the discard deal 5. But I find that version worse than just the straight Dimir or Sultai versions. Drawing cards into a Bowmaster meta is not great. So kind of just looking at that. We look at just in terms of popularity of the week. Wizards has been upwards, if we look at some points, like 16%. So it had come down to like sub 10%, and now it's hovering around that 10% mark. Everything else is pretty flat. Like we're seeing the no color Storm deck had like a big spike in popularity, and then it's kind of come down. It is a deck that loses to Karn. It can win for certainly, but it is a deck that's a little bit susceptible to just various hate cards in the format. So we'll jump into it. We're going to look Platinum to Mythic rank, July 31st to August 7th, 45,000 games of Magic played. And the top performing deck of the week is Izzet Wizards. So most played, highest win rate. And I'm actually part of the reason this deck's quite high. So I got to number 62 Mythic this month with this deck. Went 31-10, so I averaged 76% win rate. At one point, I was about 83 to 85% win rate. I actually, my winning into Mythic, and then I lost 3 in a row. So I had a pretty good streak, all things considered. So I took like 3 losses right towards the end there. But I played 41 of these games of the 130 to kind of bring this. And the biggest thing that, having played the deck a lot, is the instant speed package is so much better than the sorcery speed package. So the sorcery is like birthday, surprise, and whatever the other shock is. Basically, the ring tempts you. Those ones just don't allow you to kind of play a tempo-oriented game, which the deck wants. Having instant speed spells with like Soulscar Mage really lets you kind of have prowess-style effects to kind of cheek through damage. It also lets you just pass the turn and interact with your opponent on their turn. Which is a lot better to disrupt like certain kind of combos or just have like the damage, playing stuff on their turn to bait stuff out. It also is really nice in the mirror because you can, if they're trying to kill your Soulscar Mage, you can prowess at their turn to kind of get its toughness up if they're dealing like 2 damage, for example. So consider Play with Fire as kind of that combination. 2 Flame of Anor, this card is very good. If anything, I would probably try to find a spot for a third copy of it, maybe in place of a Consider. And the big thing that I was doing this month is Fiery Izzet, the Horizon line, just replacing the Sulfur Falls or whatever it's called, the Izzet Pain line in terms of the Fiery Izzet. This always deals damage to you as opposed to the pain lines, which could add colorless, but this has the option to draw you a card late, and this has come up a lot of times in the games in terms of just being able to find that spell. Straight 21 lands as opposed to the 20 plus Spikefield Hazard. I just don't think Spikefield Hazard is really relevant, and you don't want tap lands in this deck as much as possible. Den of the Bugbear, and then a Jinganta Companion. So 70% win rate, 41 games were mine. Then moving over to Boros Thopters. This is a deck that's kind of fallen off in recent weeks, in part because the presence of Bowmaster really hurts a lot of the creatures in the deck. Esper Sentinel, Toolcraft Exemplar, Ingenious Smith, the Thopter, at least in this case, you get a 1/1. Your Ornithopter, Yotai Thopter still survive, so that's at least there, but in terms of like attack, sometimes they could get some tricky damage. But the core of this deck is built around Retrofitter Foundry. This allows you to sacrifice a Thopter with its last mode to turn it into a 4/4, so basically your 0 mana card becomes a 4/4. Barb Spike, Yotai all create Thopters they can take advantage. Ingenious Smith helps you dig, Portable Hole for removal, and then Mishiko to pump up your team with the conjunction of Shadowseer for lifelink and trample kind of pushes through that damage there. So kind of a powerful engine, and this is a Luris Shell. Then go to Dimir Ninjas. So this is another deck that I played a lot of this or towards the end of the last season, maybe the beginning of the season. It's a really fun deck. It's pretty tricky to do. There's a video on it on my YouTube if you want to take a look at it. But Alchemy actually did a really good job with this deck, 62% win rate, of buffing a lot of cards. So Thousand Face Shadow only costs 3 to ninjutsu in this version, in this deck, as opposed to the previous, like the real copy is just 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue. And then you have like Moon Circuit Hacker. I think this one is like 3 mana spell normally, but this is like Ninjutsu 1. Silver Fur is Ninjutsu 1 as well, as opposed to Ninjutsu 2. So this really just kind of powers up. But there's kind of a way you can combo in a sense. With Silver Fur attacking, if you have 2,000 Face Ninjas in hand, or like 1 in play, 1 in hand, you can basically just loop them together and keep making copies of the Silver Fur Master. And then it creates another copy tapped and attacking, and then the lords see each other, so they each pump each other up. So it's a lot of ways to kind of push through damage there. Bowmaster in the deck provides 2 bodies that could be ninjutsu'd, another flash threat. Ornithopter Retro Foundry package. You also have Changeling Outcast, which is both a ninja and a Thopter, and notably also an army, so you can put the counters on it. So just be mindful if you're thinking of you're going to get another blocker. It came up a couple times that I forgot the interaction there. This is all creature types, thanks to being a changeling. Fairy Seer, while none of the types that matter in this deck, it's an evasive creature, so you can get into the attack, but it also sets up your draw really nice to kind of find whatever key cards you need. Spell Pierce for some disruption, along with Fatal Pushes as well. And this is another Luris Shell. Then go to Gruul Goblins at 60%. So this is a Gruul combo deck. So what you're trying to do is have Cabaretti Revels out, just play a bunch of goblins, get for more free cast goblins with cost reductions in like Goblin and Archomancer, Goblin Influx Array to make them cheaper. Scurvy Prospector could sack stuff to kind of net you mana when you sack things. Palish Hmong pins your opponent. And then you have like Muxus, Ringleader, Krenko. If you could get haste with them with Goblin War Chief. And then you have the Ruvenel Horde Master. You kind of just spam the board and kind of play through majority of your deck and just alpha strike in your opponent that way there. No companion in this deck, so breaks the theme thus far of decks we've been looking at. We'll then go to Sultai Dredge. So this is the Sultai variant of the deck itself. 58% win rate. And this deck is about self-milling yourself from the library. So things like Otherworldly Gaze, Stitcher Supplier, Founding of the Third Path, Glimpse of the Unthinkable, targeting yourself, Grizzly Salvage, all kind of play into this effect here. The core is if you mill over stuff, Narcomoeba gets put into play for free. That could trigger Prize Amalgam coming back. Bloodghast comes back when you play a land, which is also trigger if you gain 3 life. You get Silver Smoke back, which comes from the Creeping Chill. Haunted Dead could discard cards from your hand to get back from the graveyard. So a lot of ways to kind of trigger that. The Mirror Breaker in a lot of these matches, I was playing a lot of Dredge too. This deck's really fun to play. Is Wonder. So this allows all your creatures. So if Wonder's in your graveyard and you control an island, your creatures get flying. This is a big thing in terms of the mirror, or just in terms of like creature decks, like the Goblin deck that can block a lot, or Thopters, for example, or like Boros Thopters. You have 4/4s. It's hard to attack in with a 3/3. This gives you flying and kind of goes over the top. So 7 islands in the deck through the shock lens to kind of play into that effect there. This is a deck, I will say, sometimes like your mills are going to be amazing. Like other times, it's just you're going to lose to your deck itself. There's many times where I've had Wonder in the yard but no island. Or you mill like 20 cards and all you're hitting is everything but the enablers. Or you hit 3 Creeping Chills early, which is great. You deal 9 damage, but then your Silver Smotes are... Like this card's really bad if you're not getting it out for free. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. There's also a Dimir version that's playing the Merfolk Adventure card that can also self-mill you in that respect. And then going to Golgari Yawgmoth's 57%. This is probably the best deck in best of 3. Very, very powerful deck. I have a demo of this one as well. So it is an infinite combo. Pseudo-infinite based on the number of cards you have in your library. But Yawgmoth, when you sacrifice creature, you can put a -1/1 counter on it. So a combination of 2 Young Wolves, you can basically just sack and put the 1/1 counter on the other one to create a loop of nullifying the Undying ability. So you reset your creatures. With that loop and like Generous Visitor, you kind of net out the life. But with a Zulaport Cutthroat, you can actually drain out your opponent that way there. Hapatra also can yield you extra creatures, so you kind of get that value in that sense. Court of Calling was the big card for this deck. Lets you tutor up individual pieces. You also have the ability to Convoke to get a reduced cost on it. Eldritch Evolution also helps you sack any of these smaller creatures and then find your Yawgmoth as well. Ring, Shieldred, all kind of mixed into there as well. This deck's probably warrants a higher win rate, but it is a hard deck to play. Like I made a lot of mistakes. I was playing it in best of 3 as well, just trying to learn the ins and outs, and I used a lot of time on the clock. It's like sometimes you'll just oops, I combo, and then other times there's a lot of lines with this deck. So it's a deck I think like similar to Kethis. The more you play it, the more it would reward you in that sense of just kind of pushing you through to a higher win rate. The other deck I wanted to talk about was Rakdos Midrange. So the thing is, it's been doing really bad. So this was my like go-to deck the last few seasons. It's really fallen off. So it's really bad into Dredge. And Dredge has been very, very popular on the ladder. So I think if you want to build it, you need to kind of configure it in the sense that you're going to be building it with Brotherhood's End or even Anger of the Gods in the main. I think both are really good options. They both really hurt Wizards as well as the Dredge decks. You can't 1-for-1 removal the Dredge deck. They get too much accrued advantage. I also think things like Invoke Despair is not very good in this format. You have a lot of incidental creatures between like Yawgmoth decks, stuff like that, where it just doesn't work out. Crucius getting pinged by a bunch of different things also doesn't help. The Crocs is too slow for best of 1 at this point. The format's sped up a lot, and there's like you're just not going to really escape Croxa too much in the format itself. I think a Braid's also a really good card to have in the main board. A Braid will give you options to like the incidental like Paradox Storm deck. It also deals with all the creature decks for the most part, with addition like it won't hit Yawgmoth, it won't hit Shieldred, but it pretty much kills all other creatures in the format, as well as like everything in a Boros Thopter deck. If we look at like my stats for a sec, this was another deck like I still have a 70% win rate with it overall, but I was doing like you could see this like I was really doing well, and then I kind of just hit like a rough streak with it. Like last season I was 20-6 with it. This season I'm 5-4, and then 9-5. So the big thing with this deck I found like the Dimir matchup's really bad. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, 1-3. The Wizards matchup's very good. I was trying a bunch of different things just to kind of see with what would work. I was trying the Bone Crusher Giants in terms of fewer Crucius, a Kolaghan's Command, 3-3 with Ring and that. But I think the consensus, if you do want to play this, I'm going to try Anger of the Gods just to see how that plays out. I was playing it in best of 3 as well to see how it kind of works out there, but I think it has a pretty bad Yawgmoth matchup. So I wouldn't be necessarily trying. I was trying like hate pieces like Kalidas in the matchup, some of like the artifact hates, but with the ability for them to tutor like Haywire Might at instant speed, it deals with a lot of those pieces. They can very easily enable Revolt with the deck, so it deals with Crucius as well. So just kind of considerations with stuff like that. That's pretty much it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been liking. And if you want to see the Wizards deck, the Rakdos deck, pretty much all these decks I have videos up for. So if you want a demo of any of these decks, they're all there. And last thing to mention, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner a sub goal for the channel. We're trying to hit 10,000 subs on YouTube, so if you enjoy this content and you haven't subbed to the channel, it's free, easy, helps out. We're like 325 away, so you can be one of those 325 to help me reach that milestone. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. Stay safe out there.